So let's talk about Subhash Chandra Bose. Was he a revolutionary hero, a patriot who would have built a strong, independent India? Or was he a would-be dictator, someone who was way too inspired by the fascist leaders he worked with? This, right here, is the central conflict that just shadows one of India's most important freedom fighters.
And if that wasn't complicated enough, this whole debate is wrapped up in an even bigger mystery: his death. You see, the official story, that he died in a plane crash in Taiwan, that story's been picked apart for over 75 years. It's created this legend that has just captivated generations.
So, let's try to unravel this, shall we? We're going to unpack the life, the ideology, and of course, the enduring mystery of the man they called Netaji.
You know, to really get a handle on Bose, you've got to start with all the questions that seem to follow him everywhere. I mean, think about these questions for a second. Was his whole ideology just a little too close to fascism for comfort? Did he actually survive the war only to end up a prisoner of Stalin in Russia? And why on earth was the Indian government spying on his own family for decades after he supposedly died? But the biggest one, the one that really makes you think, is would he have become a dictator if he'd actually gotten the chance to rule India?
All right, so to even begin to answer these, we've got to go way back to his rise. What's just incredible here is how fast this all happens. In 1920, he's on the fast track. He aces the exam to become a top official in the British Empire. A comfortable, powerful life is laid out for him. But just 1 year later, he throws it all away. He basically says, I can't serve the very government that's enslaving my country. And by 1928, he wasn't just some politician anymore. He was a commander, marching his volunteers around in full military gear. This was a huge sign of the direction he was heading. And you just knew a path like that was going to put him on a collision course with the biggest name in the independence movement, Mahatma Gandhi. And this really lays it all out. They were just fundamentally different. For Gandhi, the way you got to freedom, nonviolence, was just as important as freedom itself. But for Bose? Nope. Freedom was the only goal, and if that meant armed struggle, so be it. While Gandhi believed India's heart was in its villages, Bose was looking at the world stage, saying, look, to beat an industrial power like Britain, we have to become an industrial and military power ourselves.
So this wasn't just some friendly debate. It all came to a head in 1939. There was an election for the president of the Indian National Congress, and Bose decided to run against Gandhi's hand-picked candidate. And guess what? He won with 1,580 votes.
And Gandhi's reaction? Wow. He didn't pull any punches. He flat out said, this is my defeat. He took it completely personally. And that told everyone that this wasn't just some political squabble. A huge chunk of the party was now siding with Bose's more aggressive strategy.
But that victory, well, it didn't last long. The party's leadership, which was full of Gandhi loyalists, basically refused to work with him. They made it impossible for him to do his job. So he resigned and started his own thing, the Forward Bloc. It was his own political party dedicated to a much more militant socialist way of getting independence. He was now officially on a collision course with the mainstream.
And this break from the mainstream, this is where the story gets really wild. It sets the stage for Bose's most incredible chapter, escaping India to raise a whole army to fight the British Empire. So the British put him under house arrest in 1940. You'd think that's the end of it. No way. In January 1941, he grows a beard, puts on a disguise, and just slips past the guards watching his house. He then goes on this unbelievably dangerous journey, crossing continents, to finally show up in Nazi Germany, looking for help from Britain's biggest enemy. From Europe, he eventually made his way to Southeast Asia, and that's where he took command of the Indian National Army, the INA. It was here that he delivered this absolutely electrifying call to action. It was a promise and a demand that became his signature.
And you've got to understand, the INA wasn't just some militia. Bose set up a whole provisional government that was actually recognized by 9 different countries. They took control of Indian land in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and in a hugely symbolic moment, they raised the Indian flag on the mainland. And, despite all their differences, it was Bose who, in a radio address, first called Gandhi the father of the nation.
Okay, so this is where things get really complicated. His alliance with Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, it forces us to ask the toughest question of all. Was he just being a pragmatist, using any ally he could find, or was he a would-be dictator? Let's look at the facts here. In his own book, he literally argued for a mix of fascism and communism. He thought it was the only way to get the discipline and socialist structure India needed. He personally met with Mussolini, and in his own provisional government, he was the president, the prime minister, and the army chief. He held all the power. And most telling of all, he said out loud that after independence, India would need an iron dictator for at least 20 years to pull the country together. And this is where you see the two forks in the road for India's future. It's a huge contrast with Jawaharlal Nehru, who became India's first prime minister. Bose wanted this top-down, disciplined, centrally controlled state, at least for a while. Nehru? He was all about democracy, parliament, public debate, and he was totally against fascism in any form. Their ideas for what a free India should look like were just worlds apart.
Which brings us right back to where we started, the end of his story, or what we've been told was the end.
So here's the official story. Japan surrenders, Bose is trying to escape Southeast Asia, his plane crashes, and he dies from severe burns. Simple, right? But almost immediately, the whole thing started to unravel. Question number 1. The timing. The crash supposedly happens on August 18th. But the official news from Japan doesn't come out until August 23rd. Why wait 5 whole days? What was going on during that period of silence? And then there's the evidence, or rather, the complete lack of it. I mean, think about it. We're talking about a major world figure, and there's no crash report, no death certificate, not a single photo of his body or the funeral. Nothing. It just doesn't add up. But here's the real kicker. Decades later, an official Indian Judicial Commission looked into it, and their conclusion? Absolutely explosive. They found no records of any plane crash at the Taipei airport on or around August 18, 1945. None.
So what are we left with? A man who is as much of an enigma in death as he was in his life. A freedom fighter who allied with fascists. A commander who challenged Gandhi. A leader whose final chapter is still one of history's great unsolved mysteries. The real question for us isn't just how he died. It's about what he lived for. Was his path of iron discipline the necessary choice for a nation in chaos? Or was the democratic path, the one chosen by Nehru, the one that truly secured India's future? That's the unresolved debate at the very heart of his legacy.